There's an old adage out there that you can't coach experience. You either have it or you don't. There's some teams in the SEC in 2023 that have it. Maybe some teams that you're not necessarily thinking of on the forefront of your mind when you think of SEC football in this upcoming season. But nevertheless, there's some teams that have some age, some wisdom built into those rosters, and we're going to break them down here on Southeastern 14. Hello, everyone. I'm Blayne Gilmer. Welcome to Southeastern 14, covering all things SEC football this offseason. I'll be joined by Chris Lee and Blake Lovell later on as the season gets closer and we start breaking things down. But we've touched on things from Georgia's defense in 2023, expectations for different teams coming up. We've talked about top non-conference games, so many different videos out there. Lane Kiffin 2.0 we've discussed, and we're going to be talking about a variety of other things this offseason because here at Southeastern 14, we cover not only the football side of things, but Chris Lee and Blake Lovell, who I mentioned before, cover basketball, both men's and women's, and also SEC baseball. So if you love SEC sports, you need to be tuned in here to Southeastern 14 videos coming out every single day. Subscribe, like, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. We will do some live streams as we get closer to the football season. So, without further ado, we're talking here about the most experienced 2023 SEC football teams. Right off the bat, when you're talking about returning production, there's a group of teams that you might not necessarily be thinking about when you're talking about the top returning production teams in the SEC coming into this season. Missouri, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Auburn, and LSU. Those are the teams when you talk about combined returning production, both offensively and defensively. These are their totals right here. Missouri returns almost 74% of their production from 2022. A large portion of that they're missing is Dominic Lovett, who transferred to Georgia, and we'll talk about that as you see him. Hey, I play time there. A picture of him with his recruiting picture to Georgia popped up behind me. So 74% of the production for Missouri returns from a year ago. That's Brady Cook returning at quarterback. Now he's still got to win that job. That's Luther Burden, of course, that's there. And that doesn't account for them bringing in a guy like a Theo Wees in the transfer portal. And also that defense is absolutely loaded with experience. When you look at across the projected, starting lineup for Missouri, you're talking about seniors like Johnny Walker Jr., like Tyron Harper, like Darius Robinson. There's so many guys that have been there. Jalen Carlisle's at safety. Even Enos Rakestraw, who's a redshirt junior, he's been there. And has been successful. So Eli Drinkwitz has a extremely Chad Bailey at middle linebacker. I mean, they've got not only there, but in their two deep senior. I mean, they are a heavy senior laden team over there, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that is going to pay dividends for Blake Baker at defensive coordinator, for Eli Drinkwitz at head coach, and also on the offensive side of the ball. I think they've got plenty of experience as well, whether that's, Cody Schrader at running back, whether it's their center, Vince Polgar, who is a guy who's been around for a long time, Xavier Delgado at the guard position, and they've got Javon Foster at left tackle. So the whole center to left side of their line is very experienced. They do have a little bit of youth out there at receiver when it comes to Luther Burden and Mekhi Miller, but these are guys who are playmakers. And now they add an old head, if you will, as Theo Wees from Oklahoma via the transfer portal. So you got to be impressed with just the amount of experience that Missouri has brought back. I think they've got a chance to be a little bit of a dark horse in the SEC this year. Texas A&M, they're bringing back Connor Wiegman, Evan Stewart, Moose Muhammad over there at receiver. So I think that offense has got a lot to be excited about. Anaya Smith returns. So there is a lot of production that comes back for Texas A&M offensively. Defensively, they were hit a little bit with some of those guys from that vaunted 2022 class that have transferred out, but the guys who have stuck around are guys that have been doing things for him for a while and have had success over there. Guys like Shamar Stewart are going to come into their own a little bit more this year. They got Fidel Diggs over there. Damani Richardson comes back at safety. So Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, you got a lot of experienced players coming back now. Can they just avoid the drama and put things together? He's going to delegate to Bobby Petrino, we think, play calling wise. So we'll see if that offense is improved there. They have their trigger man, as we pointed out, in Connor Weigman. So very interested to see how Texas A&M does. They've got an experienced ball club this year. They've got people who know what's going on. And listen, the system's going to change on offense a little bit in terms of probably the execution of things and the design of things. I'm sure they'll keep some of the terminology similar, but it's the pieces are there for Texas A&M to definitely show improvement in 2023. Ole Miss, as shocking as it is with Lane Kiffin and the transfer portal, hashtag the portal king, all that kind of stuff that goes on at Ole Miss, they're bringing back a good amount of talent. When it comes down to the breakdown, they bring down 74% of their production on offense. Now, a lot of that, let's be honest, has to do with just the legs of Quinshad Judkins and the legs of Jackson Dart, for that matter, coming back. Now, Jackson Dart may not even be the quarterback, so you do have to nuance these statistics a little bit when it comes to returning production, because Spencer Saunders, Walker Howard, both competing. Spencer Saunders probably competing more seriously than anybody for that job, but Quinshad Judkins coming back, of course. They did lose some production at receiver, but overall on offense, 74%, almost 75% of their production is returning. That's a little bit lower, almost a little bit under 62% defensively. But listen, Ole Miss hasn't necessarily been a juggernaut defensively. They got to get better at stopping the run. So we'll see how that goes. But Quinshad Judkins is a guy that is one of the most talented players in the league. So excited to see Ole Miss come back with the addition of what they bring in the portal every year, as Lane Kiffin has proven he'll do with hashtag transfer to the SIP and come to the SIP and all those kind of things. So they do return some key pieces, but we'll see how that all is slotted and changed around. Auburn, they bring back guys like Jarquez Hunter. They bring back guys like Robbie Ashford. Some of those receivers that didn't have eye-popping numbers, but they've been in the program. They return. Now it's up to Hugh Freeze to kind of change into that more RPO type of system, away from Brian Harson's, what seemed to be a very vanilla pro-style type system that just didn't get any momentum for whoever was at quarterback, whether it was TJ Finley, whether it ended up being Robbie Ashford later on. I mean, it just did not have the success they were hoping. Bo Nix was there at the beginning of that run. So, a new day in Auburn, but they have some carryover. 67% of the production is coming back for Auburn. So we'll see how Hugh Freeze is able to utilize that production, and he's always creative, especially offensively. I think you'll see him use Robbie Ashford's legs in creative ways. But hey, at this point, TJ Finley, they just had their scrimmage, and TJ Finley is still competing for that job. Holden Garner got some work there with the ones as well. So that you got to kind of keep an eye on that and see how that goes. And then LSU, this is the one that is scary for teams. LSU returning as much production as they did at the wide receiver position, they are loaded. They're absolutely loaded, whether it's Malik Neighbors, whether it's Brian Thomas, whether it's Kyron Lacey. These are all guys that have been tremendously productive and effective in Brian Kelly's, first year. And now they bring in a transfer and Aaron Anderson from a local New Orleans guy who's been there. Their entire offensive line comes back. Such a luxury with Jaden Daniels being there. Mason Taylor was a freshman last year at tight end. They're going to have him there as more of an experienced guy now. Their running back room really stayed intact. They've got Josh Williams coming back, John Emery, Armani Goodwin. These are all guys that produced. And listen, even if something were to happen, with Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier has experience as the backup quarterback. So I'm telling you, LSU having that amount of returning experience from an SEC West team, SEC West championship team a year ago, is phenomenal. Now, where LSU doesn't have as much experience, they did lose a lot on the defensive side of the ball. Up front, guys like Ali Gay, Jacqueline Roy, both gone. BJ Ojolari on the edge is gone. They lose Mike Jones in the middle. They lose basically the secondary over there is a total rehaul. But, they do bring in experienced guys like a Deuce Chestnut from Syracuse, like a Denver Harris from Texas A&M, guys that have played in this league. Greg Brooks, he was there a year ago, so he's kind of been in the program now. Major Burns, he was there, kind of a first-year guy after having transferred over from Georgia a year ago. So LSU with that experience. Now, Georgia is right behind at number 6, so they didn't make this, but I think when you're talking about they lose Stetson Bennett, that's a big chunk of why their production on offense is down to 48% returning, because a Heisman Trophy finalist in Stetson Bennett was gone. But they got guys like Brock Bowers coming back. They've got guys like Ladd McConkey coming back. They've got they lost some production at running back, but you add in guys who have SEC experience and were a larger deal of the production for Mississippi State in Ra Thomas, and as mentioned before, Missouri with Dominic Lovett offensively. And I think those numbers are skewed and changed a little bit. Of course, Georgia's question is who's at quarterback? Is it Carson Beck? Is it Brock Vandagriff? How they go forward from there? It looks to be Carson Beck going forward, but Georgia's just on the outside of this top 5. And then a team that actually is dead last, the least experienced team, is Alabama at 39% total. They just lost a lot of guys from that team a year ago. Bryce Young, Jahmyr Gibbs, gone. Cameron Latou, gone. 3 offensive linemen in Emil Ekiyor Jr., Tyler Steen were 2 starters that are gone. Defensively, they lost a lot up front in DJ Dell and Byron Young. Will Anderson is gone, probably a top 10 pick. Henry To'oTo'o has been in the middle of that defense. And then they lost 4 really talented guys in the secondary with Jordan Battle, DeMarco Helms, Eli Ricks, and Brian Branch. And, man, I just tell you that's not easy. Just like LSU, they're having to replace a lot on the back end, but Alabama is also having to replace a lot in that front 7 as well. They're bringing in, transfers like Tresman Marshall from Georgia. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Again, all these numbers are skewed a little bit, but those are your 5 most experienced teams in the SEC heading into 2023 in terms of returning production. Missouri and that defense, tremendously experienced and very, very deep, in my opinion. They had the 34 ranked scoring defense in the country last year, and all those guys returning. I think you're going to see Missouri have a chance to be a top 15 defense in college football this year. Texas A&M at number 2, Ole Miss at 3, Auburn at 4, LSU at 5. Of course, we mentioned where Georgia and Alabama rank. If you like this content, leave your comments below. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Greatly appreciated. I'm Blayne Gilmer. This is Southeastern 14, and we'll catch you guys next time.